Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort currently facing at least 10 years in prison, but according to the president, a pardon is not necessarily out of the question.
In an interview with the New York Post yesterday, the president says, quote, "It was never discussed, a pardon, but I wouldn't take it off the table." Why would I take it off the table?
All right, Judge Napolitano, why would he take it off the table? He's just answering a question honestly. All of a sudden, Democrats are throwing their hands up in the air and saying, this is obstruction, promising a pardon.
Well, and the Democrats' theory by the president saying that he's manipulating Manafort's communications with Mueller, I think that's a real serious stretch. First of all, the president's pardon power is absolute, and he can decide to pardon anybody. But just for federal crimes. Why do I say that? I reread, this is after Kilmeade sent it to me, I reread the 175-page plea agreement he entered into with Bob Mueller and approved by a federal judge back in September. At the same time, he pleaded guilty to the federal crimes for which Mueller's grand juries had indicted him. He also pleaded guilty to as yet uncharged state crimes in New Jersey, New York, and California.
And the president can't pardon.
And the president can't pardon for that. This was from Mueller's perspective, a brilliant move. From Manafort's perspective, it was a take it or leave it, and he took it.
So if the president did pardon him, what would that mean? That would mean just the federal charges would be dropped, and so he would have to, what, serve a lesser sentence?
He would serve no time in the federal prison.
For the federal prison, but in state he would.
Well, he hasn't been charged, but I think he would be charged immediately, would be indicted immediately by a grand jury sitting in those states, because the guilty plea in federal court in September was an admission to the commission of these federal crimes, which are in the field of bank fraud.
Judge, we have heard from a number of top Republicans that the president has no intention of firing Robert Mueller. And yet on the floor of the Senate yesterday, there was a bipartisan move between Cory Booker and also Jeff Flake to try to come up with a bill to protect Robert Mueller. We've got a soundbite from Senator Mike Lee. Watch this.
We cannot convert an office like this one, an office like the previously existing Office of Independent Counsel, without creating a de facto fourth branch of government, fundamentally undermining the principle of separation of powers that is so core to our liberty. And on that basis, Madam President, I object.
That is the constitutional conscience of the Senate, Senator Mike Lee. I fully agree with him. I also agree with Senator McConnell. This is a solution in search of a problem. First of all, the president can only fire Bob Mueller for misconduct in office. He can't fire him because he doesn't like who he indicted. Right. And even if he did fire him, that would not undo the indictments or the prosecutions that have begun. But Senator Lee's argument is, if you sort of institutionalize this office and make it very, very difficult for anybody to regulate it, what is it? What branch of the government is it in? If it's in the executive branch, they work for the president. If it's in the legislative branch, they work for Congress. You've got this thing as almost a fourth branch of the government. You can only do that by amending the Constitution.
Right. Jeff Flake is trying to go out relevant, so he's going to hold up all the nominations because he won't vote for this, and therefore Grassley pulled it back out of committee, pulled out all these judges out of committee.
There are a lot of judges, very, very good lawyers who are ready to be confirmed, whose confirmations now will not happen until January.
All right, real quick, Corsi, Stone, and the president interacting. They are indications that there's insinuations that they might have been talking about the WikiLeaks document dump before it happened.
So the easiest crime for the government to prove is conspiracy, because it's just an agreement. The thing agreed to doesn't actually have to have happened. So Mueller's theory is probably that there was an agreement amongst Trump and others to get information from the Russians to Julian Assange, hacking Hillary out into the public. And if there was an agreement, he would argue to a jury that violates federal laws, which permits agreeing with foreign nationals, Assange and the Russians, to receive something of value to the campaign.
Sure.
How do we know that? Because we saw the proposed guilty plea that they gave to Jerome Corsi, which he rejected, and then sent to the media.
Right, and all those names mentioned, all denied. All right, Judge, thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Pleasure, guys.
So much
a lot more to come, as you know.
You should get a big bonus during the Trump years.
Please tell the second floor.
All right. More on the breaking news.